All right, welcome to the Sports Guys. Another weekend update, October 28th, 24, another packed weekend of incredible sports events. We're going to get into all that tonight. I hope all of you and your families are having a great Halloween week and that you have a really fun and safe Halloween coming up on Thursday. How you doing, Robbie?
Doing great. Looking forward to Halloween. Had a great weekend with you at the beach and tons of sports. So life is good.
That's good, man. You and the kids and Jess going to be dressing up for Halloween?
Oh yeah, we're gonna be stick figures.
Stick figures. Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be a whole family of stick figures.
That sounds fun. What I'm
Yeah.
working on this year is I always get way too much candy and then I have to donate half of it to Goodwill. This year I'm trying to avoid that. I'm trying to buy a lot less candy and we'll see what happens. But how you doing, Brad Moore?
Good, man. Just grinding it out. It's weekends are busy with football and yeah, life's good. No trick or treating or no Halloween parties for us this year.
Well, we're glad to see you, man. Thanks for coming on tonight.
Yeah.
Give us a Jackson Moore update. Give us a Jackson Moore and App State update for the season.
Yeah, so Jackson's doing well. He got thrown into that spot. Wasn't planning on playing, but due to an injury, and he's gotten in there and he's grinding it hard. He's working kinks out, and but doing well. I think special teams really has been doing well the past 3 games, and really all the games this year. So
I agree with that. He's been kicking well.
He's kicking really well. He's doing good, and he's still just finding his way and getting more confident, more comfortable every game that he's playing. So yeah, I'm proud of him. He's doing a good job.
So what is App's kind of goal for the rest of the season? I know they've kind of lost a couple they didn't really expect to, but
yeah, it obviously started off with the hurricane. They had to cancel that Liberty game, then went on the road, had a tough loss to Marshall, Louisiana Lafayette. But let me tell you, this past weekend, then they had a bye week, then coming back home for the first game since the hurricane. And I think the whole Western North Carolina, it was really nice for the people to be able to come out, enjoy something, see something that's fun, go to an event, and just get away from the devastation that's happened up there over the past 30 days. And they came out and played very well, offense, defense, special teams. I have to say Joey Aguilar had a fantastic game. Caden Robinson. It just, the offense played well, the defense played well, the special teams played well, came out, shut them down, 3 and out, block punt for for 2 points, and we just took it from there. It was kind of back and forth, and but it was a good game, and we ended up with the win. So
that's a real good team you guys beat there. That was a good victory there.
Yeah, absolutely. So
you think about App State and Western Carolina, the two of those schools are kind of representing that really impacted area, and it's just really, really cool that they can, be playing games now again for the fans.
So moving forward through the end of the year, I think their game plan, take it 1 week at a time, 1 game at a time. I mean, they're still in the race. Got Old Dominion at home this weekend, and but you just have to take it 1 week at a time and 1 game at a time. There's no other way to do it from now to the end of the season. So every game counts.
So did they let Jackson at least keep the ball for his first field goal this season?
They did. Actually, it was handed to my wife. So, but it ended up getting back in Jackson's hands. So he's got his first NCAA Division I football from his first kick made.
Well done, Jackson. Well done.
That's awesome. Good job, Jackson. Robbie, any big stories come out of the weekend you wanted to highlight?
Just a few dozen. The biggest one, probably the Commanders, the Hail Mary. So many college games. Actually, college felt a little like the old days. A lot of blowouts for good teams. There were a couple real tight ones, but it kind of felt like the last number of years where teams were paying millions of dollars to bring someone in to blow them out. No, it didn't feel like as many top 25 matchups as what we've seen. But there were some really important ones that mattered. So you're starting to see, I said in our last podcast that the next 2 weeks are going to decide a lot. And this was week 1. And I think it did decide some things. And it certainly knocked out the ones that were barely hanging on and kind of pushed us towards seeing some flaws in some of the top programs. I know how I would approach some of these teams. And also it kind of underlines some teams that are starting to make moves and separate a little. So
I think the fact that this weekend felt so ordinary to you and to all of us is a testament to how wild the rest of the season has been, the first 7 weeks. Because there have been, crazy upsets, crazy losses to teams, Alabama with 2 losses, USC getting knocked out early, Michigan getting knocked out. The fact that this weekend all the big teams held serve except for LSU. You basically had one team that was ranked higher than the one they lost to the entire weekend. And that does feel a lot more like the old days instead of the realignment era. So, yeah, interesting. What are your thoughts,
Brian? A lot of parity in the NFL. The line was on a lot of teams that lost. So,
there was some tight races and on the college side, but then you look at the Nebraska almost taking down Ohio State and Texas just got by Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt really has come alive this year, and
it felt like. It feels like there were a lot of upsets that were right on the brink and they didn't happen. That's what it feels like.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think the biggest one, I was a little surprised at the Notre Dame Navy game at that large of a spread on the points of the game. It just seemed, a good game. Yeah, I thought it would be a little bit better. Not that Notre Dame couldn't beat them, but I thought that it would be closer.
I actually didn't think so. I thought there was no way Notre Dame's losing that game. And it would probably be pretty decisive. The one I found kind of interesting was number 11 BYU against UCF. UCF was had the spread, so they were picked to win in Vegas.
Oh wow,
that was strange. I guess BYU is just not getting any respect yet.
And I don't know why. They just win every week.
Yeah,
I know.
I didn't. Did they move up? They're still at number 9.
They did. Yeah, we're going to go over the top 25 and show the scramble. There was quite a scramble this week, as has happened every single week this season. So we'll get into that. My biggest surprise in the NFL this week was the Baltimore Ravens going down to a hapless Browns team who was playing with a backup quarterback, Jameis Winston, who hadn't played in a year and a half. It felt like a pride game for the Browns, sitting at 1-6. They really felt like they needed it to just kind of salvage anything this season. But, it's pretty clear that the Ravens were either looking ahead or looking behind or something because they weren't prepared to play that day.
I don't know. I think they caught a whole season worth of frustration. And also, apparently, Jameis Winston's speech really caught a lot of players, that touched them. They've been searching for anything that they can hang their hat on for optimism this year, and they know that it's a disaster at quarterback. And Jameis he gave a big pregame speech, and apparently it was very effective. He was talking about how he was begging the team to believe in itself, and they went out there and took them down. So it worked. And I've actually heard some speeches about the leadership Jameis shows sometimes is kind of remarkable. They used to greet every one of the Florida State players onto the field without being asked. And he does things like that naturally. So he's kind of a natural leader, even though he's not the greatest quarterback. He certainly has some leadership skills that
I don't know. He threw
there in certain circumstances.
He threw about 3 or 4 balls in that game that Deshaun Watson hasn't thrown in about 3 or 4 years. So, I mean, he can throw the ball. He does throw a lot of picks in his past, but he definitely has some talent.
But he didn't against the Ravens.
Right. That's all it takes. Well, let's go take a look at some of this information we've prepared for you guys. Here we go. All right, this is our weekend update for October 28th, 2024. I put the guy on the left there who I think is probably the leader for the Heisman Trophy, along with the guy on the far right who's probably tied with him. That's Dylan Gabriel of Oregon. And then, of course, I had to put in there the pass. We're calling it the pass because it was probably the most exciting play from the NFL this year, and that was Jaden Daniels' long bomb to win the game at the end in a Hail Mary situation. And we're going to show you guys that highlight here in a second. So in terms of NFL football week 8, we have the Ravens allow letdown against 1-6 Browns. We just mentioned that. That was kind of a crazy game. Any other comments you wanted to make on that game or any other observations?
I think Rob nailed it earlier. I mean, Lamar Jackson, 23-38, 289 yards, 2 touchdowns, but Jameis Winston, came to play.
I guess if you look at the game, it really was a pretty good game. It's not like the Ravens completely folded or something.
No, it was a great game.
If you're going to analyze it fairly, Lamar Jackson played pretty well. In my opinion, running Derrick Henry 11 times is not going to get control of the game in a way that the Ravens control their opponent. And so you leave yourself open for an upset sometimes. Not all the time, but you need to grind him and just smash the other team into oblivion and break their will. And if you don't do that, the Ravens can get beaten. So,
biggest mistake they made is not running Derrick Henry like 30 times and just controlling the clock. Yeah. Completely
control the clock, control every drive, grind the defense down. It's safer than having it in the air a lot. It keeps Lamar Jackson from getting too much risk towards him. So there's so many good things that happen to them when Henry's having a big game. Everyone else eats. So it just a lot play action works and et cetera. But running him 11 times, that's my biggest takeaway is when they do these weird game plans, they don't look very good.
Yeah, that's right.
Rob, he didn't have much last week. There was some controversy. He was on the sideline quite a bit.
Yeah. I think they're doing some load management, but I don't have any evidence for that.
You know what? They probably are doing load management against a team they thought was 1-6 and was not very good. And it came back to bite them.
It came back to bite them because they didn't know what kind of speech that he had in the locker room and the feeling of the guys, how desperate they were just to get something positive. So the Browns are in a bad place,
So next headline is Winston injects life into the Browns to help end slide. So do you think it really was Winston in his speech? Do you think it was his arm? Was it just getting new life? I mean, I think people had kind of given up on Deshaun Watson pretty early in the season.
Absolutely.
Right? I know the fans very much wanted a change, right?
It felt a little like a turning of a page away from Jackson. I mean,
Deshaun Watson.
Deshaun Watson. I don't know why I said Jackson. Deshaun Watson. It felt like, okay, now we have a little bit of hope. Sort of like when Andy Dalton went in. The whole team rallied, and you could feel that synergy. I think the same thing happened there. It was nothing really that the Ravens did wrong. They didn't have the best game plan to win that game, but it certainly said a lot about, I think it was the speech untapped something that was sort of welling up in those players. And it wasn't so much just a speech. It was these guys were looking for something to hang on to and keep fighting to save their careers, because a lot of them realize there's going to be changes when your team's going in the wrong direction. So,
and Brad, doesn't it feel like Winston never really fulfilled his promise in Tampa Bay or anywhere else?
No,
I always felt like he had good talent. He just never. Really
I mean, he's a talented quarterback. I just don't think he's ever had that opportunity and to really show his talent level. And so, I would agree with Rob. And sometimes just making that one key change and one player, especially at that quarterback position, they're kind of the CEO of the team. And if the team the morale there is down, you bring him in, start him, and he pumps the team up. But then he's got to also go in and stand behind and play the way he played.
Yeah. Yeah, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Pretty good performance.
If Winston can play, if he can play pick free, he plays pretty well. He always has.
Yeah.
His problem is he throws 2 or 3 really bad picks every game.
He makes some decisions that are questionable sometimes, but when he's on, he's pretty good. One other thing to keep in mind is this was Nick Chubb's first game back.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was a shot in the arm of confidence that, yeah, we're not going to run him into the ground, but he's going to be out there carrying the ball. He's our horse. He's our best player.
And then, I mean, the Browns defense hasn't looked very good this year, but I mean, they've been on the field the whole year. So if you play complementary football and you start running the ball, then the defense is a little fresher. Then you start getting a little bit better defensive play.
Then you get Myles Garrett.
Yeah, that's right.
Myles Garrett.
Exactly.
So, I mean, when you look at the Derrick Henry, he had 73 yards, 11 carries, but Nick Chubb had 16 carries for 52 yards. So my thing is, was it just, managing that with Derrick Henry? Should they have played him more? Should they have let him run more? And would that have changed the game?
They made the same mistake in the playoffs last year. This has been Rob, and my big complaint is that they somehow get away from the run sometimes. I never understand it, why they do it. And it was their flaw against the Chiefs last year. They didn't control the ball.
When they've looked their best this year, Derrick Henry is running like a wild man.
Yeah.
And he can.
Right.
It completely breaks the defense's will.
So next one's Falcons on top in the NFC South. This has been a debate between Rob and me about whether the Falcons or the Buccaneers are going to win this division. It was pretty clear that the Saints and Panthers were really fading. I thought the Buccaneers, when they were fully healthy, are the better team, and I still believe that. The Buccaneers right now don't have their top 2 wide receivers, and they lost their 3rd wide receiver in the game against the Falcons. So he literally has no one to throw to right now. Falcons in that situation are the better team when the Bucs are that banged up. Any thoughts about Falcons top of the NFC South, and can the Bucs get healthy to try to catch them?
I think that's a key thing, is the lack of talent on the field in the wide receiver position. I mean, Baker Mayfield had 330 yards, but 2 interceptions. So he obviously wants to throw that ball, and but their leading receiver, I don't even know, Cade Otton.
Yeah,
right,
Otton.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, their top 3 receivers are out. So I mean,
he had 2 touchdowns.
All the receivers are out.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
well, here's what scares me about that is Mayfield threw the ball 50 times with all his wide receivers out. That's just not a great game plan. I think he's a good quarterback, and I want him to throw the ball, but 50 times to me is sort of a threshold. When you hit that, you normally lose. And
they have a pretty good running game. I don't know why.
They're completely unbalanced. The other thing is Cousins had a nice game.
Yeah, he did.
He threw for 276 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions.
Mm-hmm.
So other than a really strange Kyle Pitts celebrating too early going into the end zone, did you see that?
Yeah.
He held the ball out like this.
Yeah.
Was sort of celebrating, and the guy came up behind him, poked it out, and it was kind of questionable whether that was a touchback or not. I think the Falcons are the best team in the worst division in football.
Yeah.
So
well, I don't think that's true if they're both fully healthy, but I do think it's true right now. I think right now the Falcons are clearly the best, and unlikely the Bucs will be able to catch them because they're so banged up.
They're so flawed because their defense is terrible, and they didn't add very many pieces. They were 30th last year, and they only added a little bit of pieces on defense. They were worried about offensive players that.
I think if fully healthy, Baker Mayfield and Kirk Cousins are, I call that a wash. They're both very good quarterbacks, solid.
Yeah.
I think the Bucs have better weapons across the board when they have all their guys healthy. And I also think the Bucs defense is slightly better. So
Bucs defense is a little better. I think the offense is better. The Falcons, when they're clicking,
possibly
a little bit better, but it's not by much. You're talking really, really close.
Yeah.
But it's the worst division in football. So
your prediction was they were going to win it, and it looks like you might be right. We'll see how that progresses.
Yeah.
So next one is
it wasn't a blowout.
No.
No.
It was a
Uh,
really good, high scoring NFC South game, and these two teams are vying for first place. So yeah,
Yeah, it was decent, and the line was only 0.5, 0.5. So they knew it was gonna be a close one in division. Both teams are sort of fighting for first in the division.
right.
So
Right. So next one is Jets hit rock bottom. Every time I talk to my buddy Alan, he's actually in our fantasy league as well. But every time I talked to him early in the season, they were 2-2, and he was very confident that they had turned the corner and that they were, playing great, and that their defense is one of the best in the league, and that they could run the ball with Breece Hall, and they had Aaron Rodgers and all that. And then 4 losses later, 2-6. They're getting all these bad headlines in New York, of course. And this you have this one right here by Damian Woody, who says the Aaron Rodgers era is over. What do you guys think about this one?
I mean, once again, 17 for 28, 233 yards and 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Better stats than Jacoby Brissett's stats.
yeah,
Right.
But so where, my thing is where are the Jets? Is it Aaron Rodgers, or is there some other part of their team makeup that's falling down on them?
Well, like Colin Cowherd said, that they're supposed to have a top 3 defense this year, right?
yeah.
And he claims that the defense is what's letting them down right now. And actually, they fold in the really big spots. They can't stop anybody in the really big spots.
Yeah,
Interesting.
they're counting on that team to have its defense hold down the other team while they score some. And they planned on that formula, running Breece Hall and playing a lot of good defense.
But Rob,
take pressure off Aaron Rodgers.
They also get away from the run, just like the Ravens do. Sometimes they run the ball a lot with Breece, and sometimes he gets like 8 carries.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying is they're going away from it because their defense is giving up points, so they're having to feel some pressure. This is not a top defense this year. It hasn't been. It's just real mediocre with some really good players on it. So they're not meshing very well, and it's hard to say why, but the defense not being superior makes this whole team just in a total funk.
Yeah. And I mean, their receivers have just been okay this year. I mean, just average, not great. So, but I'm not sure Aaron Rodgers is the problem. I mean, he is not nearly as mobile as he used to be. That's for sure. He's 40 years old. But I agree with Brad. I don't think he's quite the problem right now about why they're losing.
Yeah, I think he's a little bit of the problem, not so much his play, but just the way he tries to control the team from all the stories that you get about controlling personnel and just, I don't know. I'm not sure he's a great teammate anymore. I don't know if people will fight for him.
That's true. There's something to that.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, time's up. It's and there's just not that energy anymore that you bring. You come to the stadium, you play the game, you get in the locker room, you shower, you go home. You get some of these young quarterbacks in there that they bring some energy into the locker room, and I'm not taking anything away from Aaron Rodgers. He may do that, but it just seems like maybe that has worn off.
Well, he didn't really play great in his last year at Green Bay. He played great the year before that, but his last year at Green Bay, he was decent. He was good, but he wasn't, in Aaron Rodgers.
When I think of Aaron Rodgers on the Jets, I think of 2 things. First, he's always frustrated, but trying to control it, and everyone can feel that tension. And second, he's always limping. His offensive line is so pitiful that they got him hurt in 4 plays last year, and he's just taking too much pounding this year. And one thing I've discovered, it's become more clear to me that veterans get hurt more often, but also their healing is slower.
Yeah.
So they spend more time with that hamstring injury. They're hurt 7 weeks instead of 2.
Mm-hmm.
They're just out more, and that kind of hurts your team, and it hurts the continuity and frustrates everybody, including the person who's hurt, because he's not healing up like he used to. And
True.
that's just part of that age thing that you can't kind of quantify, but you can see it. You know it when you see it.
So to wrap this one up, you guys think he's going to play next year? Do you think he's going to retire? Do you think the Jets are going to draft somebody? Where do you think they're going with this? Because this season doesn't look very good.
I don't know what his contract looks like, but certainly I'm not sure what he's trying to prove. If he's trying to get another Super Bowl, but it's not going to happen this year. So
he's got one more year beyond this year. So he's got a 2-year deal in place. So my thought is what they're going to do is they're going to go draft a young guy, and they're going to let him learn under Aaron Rodgers for a year, and then that'll be it. I think Rodgers will be retired. That's what I think.
Well, I heard a pretty interesting theory that kind of makes me intrigued. LaFleur invited his friend Saleh to practice, and I guess he's taking on some kind of role with the offense. And by the way, Saleh being gone from the Jets is definitely hurting their defense.
Definitely hurting their defense.
No question there. But second, how interesting is it that LaFleur, who didn't have the best relationship with Rodgers, shipped him out of town, first opportunity he really got, and then Saleh, who he got him fired, he got Saleh fired. Kind of, it's well known that happened behind the scenes. They're kind of teaming up. I think that's going to drive Rodgers to try to do something, but I don't think he's going to get it done. I think it's just his best days are behind him, and he doesn't have the supporting cast.
But don't you think he'll live out his contract? He'll play next year, and he'll have a young guy under him for tutelage?
I'm not sure. I don't think he's having fun.
So maybe he does retire.
Does he like New York? Maybe he does. I don't know, but it doesn't seem like he's having fun. Maybe it's just that he's always taking shots and he's hurt all the time.
Yeah, I don't know.
But it doesn't look very fun for me.
We'll see.
Well, a lot of that fun's going away because he's used to winning.
Yeah, that's right.
When you're not winning, it's not fun. So
that's a huge part of it.
And you're getting beat up, and your body is not 25 years old anymore. So
yeah, and what do you point to where you're like, but we're going to start winning? Why would they start winning? Like, where's that optimism coming from?
So next one, we got Bengals tell the truth of their season with words and actions. And this was straight from Joe Burrow in the after-game press conference when they lost their third in a row. He said, we're just not good enough. He said, and that starts with me. So he really did own up to it. And he essentially said that, unlike what they thought coming into the season, he doesn't think this is a very good Bengals team. So I thought that was a pretty kind of a truth moment from him. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think he's struggling a little bit this year. And it's nice to see somebody in that position take ownership of the fact that he's part of the we're not good enough. It's not everybody else. He's not putting the blame on everybody else. And so it's nice to hear that coming out of your leader. And so Joe Burrow's good. I think he's adapted to the NFL quite well. A little different than some of the other young quarterbacks coming out of Division I football or Division II football. But the Eagles look good.
True. They did look really good this weekend. I didn't think the Eagles had looked very good most of the year, but this weekend they really look like a contender. There's no question.
Have you noticed how much better Hurts looks now that Saquon is establishing himself as probably the best running back in football this year?
Yeah.
Saquon's doing this, so Hurts looks here.
It makes all the difference. Makes all the difference.
Saquon is absolutely just pounding people, running all over the place. I wouldn't want to play defense against him.
No.
So it's kind of sad. There's a big knock on Cincinnati for always being cheap. And I don't really understand that argument because the salary cap is what it is. Everyone has to spend the same amount, or relatively speaking.
What do you think's wrong with this team, though, Robbie? I mean, there's some kind of flaw in this
I think
team.
they overpaid Burrow. There's a lot of dissension in the ranks on why they're not paying Jamar Chase. And they had to ship out players, defensive players over the last 2 years in free agency to bring down salaries.
You know what the number one free agent they let go that's really hurting them is?
Mixon.
Joe Mixon, who's
Yeah.
with the Texans. He's just is
But
killing them.
they lost a lot of pieces on defense, and you can really see it.
Yeah, that's true.
So they're not a very good team. Their core is not great. You know who they remind me of? You know what their comp is? The Dallas
Who?
Cowboys.
Yeah. No, I agree with
Overspent, except, by the way, I'm a big Burrow fan.
Me too.
And Dak's a nice guy, but I'm not a big Dak fan.
Yeah.
You know, I'd probably rather have CeeDee Lamb than Jamar Chase, but not by much. It's real close.
Do you think this was a truth bomb by him that we're not good, or do you think it was kind of a message to both his coach and his GM that you guys got to get me some help? You know what I mean? Like, it just felt like it was kind of a scathing indictment of his own team.
I think you guys are right that he's taking ownership for what he can control. But clearly we have a defensive problem here, just like with the Cowboys. And the offense just isn't good enough to carry everything. They're not running the ball. And Jamar Chase is CeeDee Lamb. So it's just, I mean, poor Chase has to have an unbelievable game every time, or they don't even have a prayer.
Yes, he has to have 200 yards and 3 touchdowns for them to win.
Yeah. Yeah. And so their defense isn't good. They let too many players walk, and their
Can't run the
offense,
ball, and
they don't have
defense-
much around Burrow.
They got to score.
Yeah,
I mean, Brad, they got to score 36 points to win. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or more.
Yeah. I mean, you know, Jamar Chase had 54 yards.
Yeah.
But
It's not going to get it done.
Philadelphia's defense, I think, was stepped up and was very good. They I think the run yards, the rushing yards were minimal.
Yeah.
That was the worst performance by the Bengals this season. That was the best performance by the Eagles in the same
How
game.
about Hurts? 16 of 20, 236 yards passing, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, 3 touchdowns running, and a 95.6 QBR.
It's about
That's
as perfect
total
as you-
domination.
and handing the ball off a lot to Saquon.
And Saquon had 108 yards, 22 carries, 108 yards.
And by the way, the Eagles' defense had not been very good this year, and now all of a sudden it's starting to come into its
It's
own.
better. Yeah, it's better.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, next one is Tua praised for protecting self, but Fins fall short. So, Robbie, I'm going to lead off with you on this one.
Can we skip this one?
No.
No.
I'm just kidding. I think the best moment in the game was when Tua slid and got a standing ovation. That was the first standing ovation I've ever seen for a slide.
The slide.
It was awesome, though. He had a really nice run, and he was really getting close to the goal line, and everyone's holding their breath because they're like, I know what he's going to do. He's going to stick his head in there, and he's going to do the thing that Tom hates, the
They're going to
fencing.
do the fencing, yeah.
The fencing syndrome or whatever. But yeah, Dolphins got a lot of problems.
Although I will say the Tua-led Fins offense did
They
look
look better.
It did look better.
They look better.
What do you think,
And
Brad?
it was a very evenly, you know, when you look at run yards, pass yards, you look at, you know, you take away the safety, you know,
Bad
that
snap.
changes the game.
You know what else?
It was actually a
You
pretty
know what
good
I'll
game.
say? This said less about the Dolphins and more about the Cardinals. The Cardinals got a little something.
They do.
They're not terrible.
They got some choice.
They're going to beat some teams. They have Kyler Murray's much better. They got some nice talent, you know. They really looked pretty good. Harrison looked amazing, 111 yards and a touchdown. He was diving, laying out for balls and catching them. He looked like a goalkeeper in soccer or something. He's going to be a star. He's already getting there.
Oh yeah.
So Cardinals aren't going anywhere, but they're going to beat some good teams. They're better.
I agree. You don't really want to play them. They're one of those teams that can knock you off. So
And
Brad, do you
they
think
came back and won? I mean,
Brad, do you think Tua should have come back? Or think he should have retired?
I think from a standpoint of, do you want to keep your head? I mean, listen, at the end of the day, if he gets hit one more time, I mean, it's not going to be good.
I mean, Brad, he's got 3 young daughters who need him,
Yeah.
right? and he's got $100 million in the bank. So like
he's got a $190 million contract that he gets most of it if he walks away.
I just don't, there are, you look at the NC State quarterback, and we could talk about this on as we move through, but couple concussions. Coastal Carolina came to NC State, got hit a few times, and decided to say, "Hey, I'm going to retire from football." If retire is the right word,
right?
Because my mind and my head means more to me, So but somebody's got $100 million in the bank, $190 million, whatever it is.
Yeah, that's generational wealth.
3 little girls. He's got 3 little girls. Yeah.
He got
3 little daughters that need him to know that they're there.
Yeah, 100%. And all it takes is one hit.
Which is why they were literally cheering every time he slid.
Yeah.
That didn't get hit.
Yeah, it was a standing ovation. So
I think even the fans kind of want him to retire. I really do. And these are fans.
I mean, the Dolphins look so much better with him, but it's not worth it. I'd rather him retire.
Yeah.
I'll take my Boyle or my Huntley and just suffer through this season.
It's going to be a bad season anyway.
We start over. What's that?
It's going to be a bad season anyway.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, he could always be a quarterback coach. He can still be involved.
That's what I think. Put him on the staff,
But
any kind of coaching. Yeah. He's also really well spoken. He could easily do broadcasting. He could do so many things as long as he has his faculties. Don't
you think he'd be a good quarterback coach? I do.
He could be an anything coach.
Yeah.
So
I think he'd be a great mentor for a young quarterback coming in, even on the sideline, not necessarily, coaching him through like you were talking about Rodgers, then bringing on a rookie and letting him, mentor them through the year. But, even you got 3 girls at home. It's time to put the
You know what I forgot to mention in the Jets segment? They used 3 timeouts in the first quarter.
Yeah, I know. Unbelievable.
The first quarter is where you have almost everything drawn up.
Yeah, scripted.
That tells you that the coaching is not in sync.
Well, this is the problem I have with Anthony Richardson of the Colts. He goes 2 for 19 in the first half, and those are the scripted plays. You have to think the first quarter, you should be hitting almost every pass because they're all scripted all week, right? So if you go 2 for 19 in the first half, there's a major problem.
Yeah, when teams have like illegal formation in the first half, that tells you they didn't have a great week of practice.
That's right.
So
the next one's like a movie. Daniels throws Hail Mary TD and he wows the crowd. What are you guys' thoughts about this one? I mean, it was unbelievable.
So it was interesting. I was watching the Panthers game and it switched over to the Commanders game for the last minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes, whatever it was. And, Caleb Williams got in. They thought they had that game won. And I would have never seen the end of that game. I would have just seen the highlight. But I sat there and watched it because it was on, and it was unbelievable.
Well, the other thing about that is that the Commanders were winning the entire game. Matter of fact, they were up 12-0 most of the game.
But that was because they kept stalling in the red zone.
They controlled the game, though. They
kept kicking field goals, and it came back to almost bite them.
They were clearly the better team all day long, and then the Bears just got it going in the fourth quarter, and they almost blew it.
The stats do bear out that the Washington outplayed them, statistically speaking.
That's right.
First down, yardage, 481 to 307. First downs, 23 to 15. But
we'll show the highlight of this play in a little bit, in a couple minutes here. But just there's so many things that had to go wrong for the Bears for this to actually work. First of all, you have Jaden Daniels back there running around with like a chicken with his head cut off. He's extending the play to 14 seconds, which I was telling Rob, I don't think most quarterbacks could do that. I don't see Baker Mayfield or kind of the statue kind of quarterbacks being able to run around for 14 seconds. There's a couple guys that can, obviously, the Lamar Jacksons of the world, but that was the first thing, just the ability to run around and find and pick a spot, pick a lane, and eventually throw it right to the perfect spot, right at the beginning of the end zone, or right at the edge of the end zone. And then for it to be tipped up perfectly into the commander's guy hands as he's standing in the back of the end zone, or the middle of the end zone, really. So many things had to happen perfectly for that to actually occur.
Jaden Daniels reminds me of Michael Vick.
Yes.
Back in Michael Vick's early days. And I mean, he just, like you said, 14 seconds. You're running around and nobody.
He's electric.
It's unbelievable.
It is. It is really cool. And, Rob and I were talking about this earlier today. The Chicago Bears, if they defended it correctly, first you have the one guy who's taunting the crowd, who isn't even, his head's not even in the play, and he's the one who's supposed to be defending the play. So then his own fans are yelling at him, "Hey, get back in the play. It started." And then the other thing is you should always have a bear all the way back, right, Robbie? You should always have somebody.
Yeah, so I have a lot of thoughts on I listened to Rex Ryan break it down. It was very interesting. He said that the reason the Bears lost was bad coaching, basically. First of all, a little earlier in the game, when they handed the ball to an offensive lineman who was an eligible running back, and he fumbled it going into the end zone. And then they came back from that somehow and then ended up taking the lead. The Bears shouldn't have been in a position where it was that close. But of course, Washington had to kick all those field goals, and without scoring touchdowns, they let the Bears hang around. But the last sequences were really poor coaching. And Rex Ryan basically ended up saying, I would have absolutely terminated Eberflus's contract at that point. So basically, the play before the Hail Mary was an extremely important play because they were short and it was going to be too long of a Hail Mary throw for somebody that has hurt ribs, like Daniels has. So they did a flare out to the sideline with Terry McLaurin, and they said that it was extremely well coached and disciplined on how quickly they did that. There were 6 seconds left, and they got Jaden Daniels, I think it was 16 more yards. And they threw it out to McLaurin, and he ran with full speed out of bounds. So he knew the circumstances, and the Bears didn't even cover the out. They had guys so deep. They gave up those 15 yards, and that was the play that allowed them, because you don't throw a Hail Mary unless it's into the end zone. That's one rule of thumb. You want it to hit the sort of the front of the end zone. In case it gets tipped, it's not going to tip out of the field of play. So you want it to be into the end zone. Anything short of that, they said you don't throw that. You throw hook and ladders and pitch plays and stuff like that. So they allowed that ball to move forward some so that a Hail Mary was now possible. That was a huge coaching blunder, not taking away the sideline. The middle of the field, if they threw it to the middle of the field, the game's over as soon as you get someone on the ground. So there's that. Then you get to the Hail Mary play, more bad coaching. First of all, they had no player. The defense, when you're defending it, has to have the deepest player on the entire field. So if he has to stand on the end line, he has to stand on the end line. One guy has to be the deepest player. You cannot let an offensive player be behind you. So there has to be one guy guarding the end line and then move forward as the play is sort of more forward. But they let Washington get the deepest player, and he's the guy who caught the touchdown. That's never supposed to happen. Second, the guy who was taunting the Washington fans, Head wasn't in the game. Rex said, I would have immediately called timeout. We need all of our guys focused on knocking this ball to the ground, and everyone needs to be involved, not one guy out. More bad coaching. They rushed 4 guys, which Rex said that's never done. You either do 3 guys or you do pressure. And he said, I always did pressure. It always works. Send 5, 6, 7 guys, and then you have an even number back there, but you're not going to let that quarterback get the ball off. So they rushed 4 guys, but 3 rushed, and 1 guy spied Daniels, which he said there's no point in that. If you have Hussein Bolt he's not going to run all the way down the field 70 yards before he's tackled. It's just not going to happen. So it's
just
bad coaching. So they allowed Daniels to run around, and you could see when he got outside the pocket, the defender ran high so that he'd push him back into the pocket. So they were helping Daniels stay in the pocket, and they didn't have the deepest guy. They had people who were not focused on the play. There were Bears fans screaming to their DB, Tyreek Stevenson, to get into the play. He's the one who ran in there and tipped the ball up in the air instead of down to the ground, where Noah Brown caught it. So there were all these coaching errors. And then to cap it all off, they asked Eberflus about the last play, and he said, well, we have all these basketball drills, blocking out, blah, blah, blah. And then they asked him about the play before it, and he said that play doesn't matter. The only one that mattered was the Hail Mary. And Rex Ryan said when he heard that, I would have rescinded him as my head coach. He would no longer be my head coach. So there were a lot of errors there. You don't need a spy on Daniel in that situation. Let him run. Encourage him to run.
There's only 6 seconds left.
So there were so many errors made that allowed Daniels to run around and let the guys get.
No, but what about allowing a commander to be the deepest person in the end zone? That just can't happen.
But one thing that Rex Ryan said was the reason why that timeout was so important to call, so you could discuss this, is that this is one of the only plays that you can't really practice. The only time they practice it is in training camp. It's the only time you can practice at full speed because a lot of injuries happen on these plays. A lot of knees and people come down on each other. It's not a healthy play to be practicing. So you do a lot of this. He said they do a lot of walkthrough practices where you talk about, we want you to stand right here. We want this to happen here. But it's still not a full speed, everyone has done this a million times type of stuff. So Rex Ryan thinks that contributed in the players being a little confused, not understanding the importance of it. We haven't done this in 3 months. We'll practice it at walkthrough speed, but these guys are fast out here, and it just changes the dynamic when you're doing it. So the good coaches have their team prepared. And he said Washington was prepared. Not only did they do everything right, they sent Zach Ertz down, who is one of their tallest guys who can get the highest, he was supposed to tip the ball up in the air, actually. That was his role. McLaurin catching the ball and setting up the Hail Mary was well executed. Jaden Daniels running around, keeping the play alive to let his guys have more time before he aired it out. Jaden Daniels throwing a perfect strike to the front of the end zone. The Commanders were well coached here, and Eberflus still saying things like the play before the Hail Mary didn't matter.
I know.
It just it was a glaring.
Those are really good. Yeah, that's right. Good summary, Robbie. You guys ready to go take a look at this play?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Let's take a look.
So here you go. He's gotten hit throughout the rest of the game, and it's hurting more now. Comes down to one last play.
Look at how there's the guys just spying.
Getting longer by the second.
They're pushing it back into the pocket. 53 spying. He's not doing anything.
With the game on the line, and the ball is caught! Caught! It's a miracle! Oh my goodness! This town is going crazy. It's a madhouse in Landover, Maryland. He did it! Oh, this one will be paid back over and over again.
Look at Zach Ertz.
The ball tipped by Stevenson. Noah Brown just standing back there all alone. Plucks it out of the air for the victory.
I know this sounds crazy, but there's a method to the madness here. Everyone usually goes and jumps the ball. You always put one guy behind and try and put one in front and have 2 or 3 go jump for it. And Daniels extending this play, and the time allowed everyone to get down there in position to go toward the ball and be in their spots. And what a game, Jim.
There are no words.
Incredible.
You talk about well coached, Rob. One more thing. Did you see the O-line?
Yeah.
Washington. I mean,
Yeah, they held.
they held. They stayed in there. There was 6 of them up there.
Did you see? He's right. There were 4 rushers. I thought there were 3. There were 4.
But one guy was just hovering around spying Daniels. That's all he was doing. That's a mistake.
Yeah.
That's a wasted man.
Then he took off. He took off and went back.
Yeah.
That's right. The next one here is Malik Willis helps save the day again. What do you guys thought about this? I mean, he keeps coming in winning games. You know, Jordan Love he keeps getting hurt almost. Separately from that, Malik Willis comes in, saves the day, gets them a big win. Any thoughts about how this guy's playing? I mean, everyone had kind of given up on him in Titanland.
I mean,
I think a lot of quarterbacks we give up on too quickly need development and need to find the right situation and the right coaching. And I think we're pulling the plug on a lot of young guys who are struggling instead of putting them on the bench and letting them learn. And we're breaking them in half like we are with Richardson. He could easily be on the bench right now learning. Instead.
And who's Malik Willis's coach?
LaFleur.
Right. Who's like a quarterback
You get one of these quarterback whisperer coaches, and you take some of these cast-offs, and they look good. I mean, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, these guys are all trash to other teams, and they're not trash. They're good quarterbacks that are smart. I mean, you know, I think Willis is one of those guys who's never going to be great, but you give him good coaching and he can win games.
And Brad, I mean, what a luxury to have a backup quarterback that can win games for you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I know we feel like the Panthers have one, but think about Panthers had Sam Darnold on our roster. We had Baker Mayfield on our roster. But all these guys that are doing so well this year on our roster, and I think
it is coaching because look at it this way: he was 4 of 5 for 56 yards, a touchdown, and no interceptions because they ran the ball really effectively. 25 for 127 yards and 2 touchdowns for Jacobs.
Right.
That takes a lot of pressure off Malik Willis.
Plus, he's a great back. You need to feed him anyway.
Yeah.
The next one is May suffers a concussion. Brissett leads Patriots upset victory over the Jets. Any thoughts about this? Apparently, this was only May's 2nd concussion in his entire career, including high school and college. So he's kind of started down that path now. Hopefully, it doesn't happen again. But Brissett comes in and leads a pretty impressive victory over the Jets.
Yeah, you know,
another backup that can win games.
Right. And you kind of hate that for Drake May. I mean, he's a Charlotte native and played at Chapel Hill and I think he's going to end up being a great NFL quarterback. But this concussion thing is real, and when you get one, the second one, it just kind of starts to build on top, and it starts to just eat away at that, and I think that you got to be real careful.
No doubt.
But I think Jacoby did a great job coming in and backing him up.
You did. Don't you love seeing those NC State guys?
Yeah. He's a nice, solid backup. I'll tell you that. I would love to have Brissett as my backup.
Oh yeah,
he can win some games for you.
Yeah.
I mean, Brissett, he's proven before he can.
Yeah, you just keep it close, run the ball nicely. He's not going to make a lot of huge mistakes.
Patriots D played pretty well.
Yeah.
Held them in the game.
And the Jets are turning into a dumpster fire.
Yeah. That's right.
3 timeouts in the first quarter, and they also had delay of games, so they can't get the play in fast enough.
Speaking of that, the next headline here was interesting. Jets used money saved from Hassan Reddick's failed holdout to facilitate the Devontae Adams trade. Apparently, they wouldn't have been able to make the trade except that they had saved $5 million from Reddick's contract. So what are you guys' thoughts of that? It's kind of an interesting way to maneuver there to get Devontae.
Yeah, but is that really the answer to their offense?
No, it's not. But it just shows that maybe the only person they've got in the front office who's any good is maybe their capologist. right? Because everybody else is not too good. But
I think it
this is
shows they've needed Hassan Reddick this whole time, and they've let kind of the leadership crumble there a little bit on defense.
Mhm.
They should have taken care of him in the beginning of the year somehow. They should have figured it out.
They probably should have taken care of him and not worried about Adams. Although you know who wanted Adams, you know why he's there.
But
It's
that
Adam Rodgers.
speaks to the Aaron Rodgers effect of he needs to control more than he should.
Yeah, he needs to play on the field and let the front office and back office folks do what they're paid well to do.
Exactly right. Exactly
And
right.
you know, certainly maybe have a little bit of influence, but at the end of the day, it can't be a much more than 10 or 15%. I mean,
True. True.
but because at the end of the day, it's got to be for the Jets.
So let's talk about tight ends day. I don't know if you knew this, Brad, but this past
Mhm.
weekend was tight ends day. And what amazed me is if you look at this list of tight ends who all scored on tight ends day, it was almost like a celebration of tight ends. Kyle
Mhm.
Pitts twice, Cade Otton twice, Conklin, Wright, Laporta, Andrews, Tucker Kraft, and Njoku, Ingram, Kincaid, Troutman, Atkins, and Kelsey. All of them got in the end zone. And Kelsey gets the distinction to be the fifth tight end with 75 career TD catches in the Chiefs win.
And there
Any
were a lot
thought-
of other tight ends who played really well, didn't get in the end zone, but
Right.
Ertz had a
Any-
great game. And
So do
How
we
about-
think that is this like the peak of tight end position in NFL history? I think so. Have there ever been this many good ones? I mean, Commanders have two good ones. They aren't on here.
it's a recognition that in the last 20 years, I think it was every single year there was a star tight end. I think
Mhm.
that's what the stat was. Tight end is a crucial piece of every winning Super Bowl in recent memory.
Are
There was
any of these tight ends rookies?
I don't believe so this year. No,
I don't think so.
no, because you know who's not on here, of course, is Brock Bowers, and he's had a
Bowers.
very good season so far, but he did not get in the end zone.
He had a decent day, though.
But he had a good day. So Brock
Right.
Bowers, if he had scored, would have been on here. Who would have been a rookie, of course. Which again,
He'll be on that list very soon.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, any thought about National Tight Ends Day? I'm kind of glad they have this position being recognized. Kind of cool.
It's kind of interesting.
I think Kyle Pitts got lucky on tight ends day by not having that touchdown called back.
That's true on National Tight Ends Day. And what about this milestone for Kelsey? I mean, this is pretty incredible. 75 career TDs.
Yeah.
You don't see that often.
Mm-mm. No.
I mean, we're all.
Did you guys know he's
recognizing-
dating Taylor Swift?
I did know that. Rob had to get that in there for ratings.
Right.
For the ladies who like the sports guys. Hey, ladies. Yeah.
What a great thing, though.
I know.
I know some people don't like it, but I think it's kind of.
So this slide goes to what Rob was talking about earlier, and we were chatting about how great the rookie receivers have been this year. I don't know why. We knew the class was good, but you got Brian Thomas, Brock Bowers, Malik Neighbors, Keon Coleman, Marvin Harrison, Ladd McConkey, Roma Dunze, Whittington, Xavier Worthy, and Xavier Legette. All these guys making a big impact for their teams, and they're just dazzling in 2024. So what do you guys?
I'm starting to start Xavier Legette on my fantasy team.
Are you okay?
Yeah. Granted,
What
DK Metcalf's hurt and stuff, but
So
he's
we had a
getting going.
debate in our draft special. We had a debate over who was the best receiver. Was it Marvin Harrison Jr., was it Malik Neighbors, or was it Roma Dunze? Those were the three that we thought were the best. We thought these other guys were all really solid, obviously. Brock Bowers being the best of the tight ends. We knew Keon Coleman would be pretty good. Xavier Worthy, the speed guy for the Chiefs. But any surprises here for you guys? My biggest surprise being Brian Thomas being the top receiver.
I'm not surprised at all. The whole list is not surprising to me.
Yeah, I
This
don't.
was such a good draft because we knew this was going to be stars. Now, maybe
Lodi-
one of them might get injuries or might not work out, but for the most part, the pool of talent was tremendous this year.
Is it
I mean,
surprising that
513 yards is impressive for a rookie.
it is?
I look down at Xavier Legette, 177 yards, and because typically the rookies aren't getting that much play. And
Right.
we're halfway through the season. Brian Thomas already has 513 yards. That's super impressive. Brock Bowers is not far. I mean, the top 5, 300 plus yards.
Well, we knew Brock Bowers would be incredible.
Legette has only been really kind of playing the last couple weeks.
Yeah, he's playing better.
So it's not really apples to apples, but wow,
Right.
Brian Thomas.
I know.
Yeah,
What
He's
the
a serious
heck?
weapon.
Out of nowhere. Is it surprising to you guys that Marvin Harrison Jr. isn't number 1 on this list?
No, because it's such a strong list. You have to look at the situation. Who's the quarterback? How's the offense doing? Who are the other supporting cast? Maybe they're not the star on the team.
Mm-hmm.
Marvin Harrison doesn't have other wide receivers to compete with. Keon Coleman, wide receiver, Cooper just got there. Malik
Keon
Neighbors,
Coleman
there's nobody on the Giants. There's
Keon
nobody on
Coleman's
the
starting to
Raiders.
really-
There's nobody on Jacksonville. So
Keon Coleman's starting to really come on now. And we knew Malik Neighbors was going to be good. Rob was talking about how great he was in camp.
Yeah.
In training camp, and you just could feel it. And Ladd McConkey's a bit of a surprise. He was taken 2nd round after Joe Alt. Knew he could be solid, but I thought it would take a year or 2 for him to develop. But he's really come on. He's becoming Herbert's favorite receiver. So great list there. I'm really excited to see where these guys go with their careers. Browns over Ravens, big surprise there. Just great game. I think it was just one of those solid AFC North type games. Ravens dropped to 5-3 and are no longer in control of home field advantage, which is very devastating for them. They really, really wanted to get back to where they were last year, which is in home field in the AFC. So we'll see what that does to them. Of course, the Lions 52-14, complete blowout over the Titans. Not even competitive. Any surprises there?
No, I think the Titans they don't have.
Well, you
don't
see a lot of pro teams scoring 35 points and a half. That just doesn't happen in the NFL. And then not scoring in the 4th quarter because they handed over to their backup quarterback.
But I'll tell you, the Lions are just firing on all cylinders. They're doing trick plays, and they're just stomping their opponents into oblivion. And I thought that was just last year. I mean, last week. But they had the same kind of game plan. Just keep stomping and stomping and stomping.
They had 3 or 4 running backs going for them. They had tight ends catching all
Montgomery
over the place.
throwing a touchdown to Laporta. I mean,
yeah, it was crazy. Falcons game, that was a great NFC South matchup. I really didn't know where that was going to go. The Buccaneers actually almost pulled that game off, which I thought was pretty impressive with no receiving core. Almost were able to come back there. 49ers, Cowboys, big game. Both teams coming in with losing records, and both really needed the game badly. 49ers come out on top. They had a 21-point 3rd quarter. And had kind of an offensive explosion there. Overall, if you really look at it carefully, Purdy did not play well and really has not been playing very well this season. Some of it having to do with a lot of his weapons have been banged up. And, like Debo came in, played a little bit in the first half, and then got hurt again. You've got
I actually think he hasn't had a great season, but I think he played well against the Cowboys. If you look at his numbers, 18 of 26, 260 yards, a touchdown, no interceptions, 56 yards rushing and a touchdown, and he has 75.5 QBR.
That's true. However, if you watch the whole game, he missed a lot of throws. He missed some layups, easy throws across the middle, things into the dirt.
A little bit. He was under a lot of pressure.
Yeah, a little bit.
He hit Kittle for 128 yards and a touchdown.
And then watching the Cowboys,
they've been surprisingly weak on defense.
Watching the Cowboys unable to run week after week it's just pathetic.
Yeah,
it's so sad.
And they have so much talent, and you just wonder where's the breakdown? Is it the O-line? Is it the secondary?
Yeah.
San Fran had 223 yards rushing, and Dallas had 56.
Yeah, Ezekiel Elliott just hasn't been.
No.
Yeah, 34 yards. averaging, I think, 3.4 out of 10 carries last night. But, then Dak Prescott threw 2 interceptions. So,
Yep.
that's
amazing. It's amazing is all 3 Cowboys wins this year have been on the road, and they're 0-3 at home. So that tells you a lot about this team. That would never happen in previous years. They were almost unbeatable at home.
Did you hear about Brandon Arbery, the kicker? He had jury duty.
Oh yeah. I did hear
And
about
he refused to get out of jury duty, so he went to jury duty during the day. I thought our listeners could relate to this. He's in that quandary of, should I say something that gets me out of jury duty, or should I just do my duty or serve my time, so to speak? And so he was kicking at night, and they were wondering if that was going to affect his ability to sort of see well. And I guess they had lights on at the facility for him to kick the ball at night. That's kind of funny.
Yeah, for sure.
But I don't think it had a big impact on the game.
No. Well, good for him being a good civic steward. All right, let's look at college football. We got college football week 9. We got number 14 Texas A&M upsets number 8 LSU and climbs to the top of the SEC. This was kind of the biggest game of the week, I thought, for teams that were really kind of even in power. And I actually thought LSU would win this game, and the fact that A&M proved me wrong and now are sitting at the top of the SEC standings. What are you guys' thoughts on this one?
I kind of thought A&M was going to beat LSU from the beginning. I like A&M. I don't think number 14 is. I think they're definitely a top 10 team.
Okay. So you think they're playoff bound?
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
They might be SEC championship bound.
Yes, it looks like it. It really looks like it. Which is surprising because I thought it was going to be Georgia, Texas, but the more that I see A&M play, it may be Georgia, Texas A&M, which is going to surprise everybody.
Yep.
I think Mike Elko is a really, really good coach.
He is.
I think
He's
you're starting
really
to see that. They pulled their quarterback in the third quarter, and they put in Marcel Reed, and he went on and scored, what was it, 5 straight times?
Yes, he did. Yep.
5 straight drives.
You guys will see. You guys will see in the highlight package I put into the video later in the program. You'll see how good this guy is that Rob's talking about. Wow.
And then that's on that side. And then if you think about it, I called it last week. I thought LSU was getting a little overrated. When you look at who they've been beating, they haven't had very many hard tests.
Mm-hmm.
They had the bad loss to USC, and then they they beat Ole Miss in overtime. So it's
amazing how this picture changes every week, isn't it, Brad? I mean, last week LSU's on top of the world. They lost their first week, but then they won 7 straight, and they're on top of the world. It looks like they're cruising the playoff, and then they get knocked off the pedestal by A&M. And SEC is just a gauntlet, right?
Another thing that's interesting about LSU, they only ran for 24 yards. So they were super one-dimensional. And that played right into A&M's hands.
That's unusual for them for sure.
Yeah. They're not running effectively. So
we'll see where these two teams go. I still don't think LSU's out of it at 2 losses, but we'll see.
I think their quarterback had 400 plus yards.
Nussmeier? Yeah, he did. He threw 25 for 50, 405 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and a rushing TD.
And Nussmeier's really good.
He's a good quarterback.
He's a good quarterback. I mean, 400 plus yards in the SEC is.
But they're not running the ball enough, so they're kind of easy to defend, relatively speaking.
Yeah, that's right. So next one we got Texas outlast Vanderbilt. Brad, you mentioned this game. I mean, for a while there, watching the score on this one, it looked like Vanderbilt was going to be able to pull this off. And it was really close, and they almost did, but Texas outlasts them and did not look impressive again. Ewers really, just like in the Georgia game, looked kind of deer in the headlights, made some bad decisions. He kind of folds every time he gets a little bit of pressure. I don't know. I'm not sure about Texas now after watching them the last couple of weeks. Any thoughts?
You know, watching Vanderbilt from last season to this season, and just seeing the difference in the two teams, and then them come out and number one beat Alabama and go on a 3-game win streak, and then that close to Texas. I think this is I think they're coached very well from the top. I think Ewers is a great quarterback. I think Texas is going to be a top team, top contender in the football playoffs this year.
Okay.
I don't know that quarterback at Vanderbilt, I think he's having some great success, but I don't know. Is this a luck thing, or is he really that talented of a quarterback that just got found? I don't know.
My problem with Ewers is when he plays teams that have a good pass rush, like he did with Georgia and a little bit with Vanderbilt, he just kind of folds. That's my problem with Ewers. He's not athletic enough to get outside the pocket and have escapability.
Yeah,
which is why Arch Manning is such a great dynamic weapon for Texas, because he's such a great runner. He's faster than all his wide receivers. And so I don't know. Ewers, I'm not anti-Ewers. I don't know. He's not what I thought he was going to be beginning of the year.
So some of the numbers on Ewers are a little deceiving because he's a very efficient quarterback. His completion rate is always really, really high. But if you study his, they did some studies on his completions. They're an average of 4 yards. So he's getting a lot of yards after catch from his receivers. He has a really good team around him. So he'll dump the ball off and they'll take it for 20 or 30. His stats look much better. So statistically, he's completing a lot of passes because they're short, but they get a lot of yards. So he gets all these yards, but he's not throwing bombs. He's not. So that's kind of one thing to keep in mind is Texas is kind of limited on how to stretch the field, but they have great receivers and really good players. However, their offensive line has been very disappointing. Mm-hmm. They get whipped sometimes. They've been whipped the last 2 weeks, and their defense is ranked number 1 in the country for most of the year so far. So their defense is keeping them in games, but their offense is letting them down some. So I think they need to straighten out the offensive line situation a little bit to get into that level that they should be, which is deep playoffs. The other side of that is Diego Pavia for Vanderbilt has been outstanding. He's a star. He's really, really good. And he's taken that team on his back and just carrying them. And he did it against Alabama. And then he did it again against Texas. He had 67 yards rushing and a touchdown. And he had 143 yards and 2 touchdowns and 2 INTs. So the Texas defense got to him some, but he's just a one-man show almost out there. And I think the NFL got to be watching for that guy, because if you put a nice team around him, he could really do some stuff. So I'm impressed by him. I think he has some of the best games on film you can have of any quarterback. I'm not saying he's the best quarterback in the country, but I'm saying he has some of the best film out there in terms of things he's had to do against good teams.
And what's amazing is he was completely unrecruited. Vanderbilt's the only team that would take a chance on him. So.
Most teams haven't had to face Alabama and Texas so far. Let's put it that way.
That's right.
I'm serious,
And to be honest, I mean, to only lose by 3 points to Texas.
Yeah. Incredible. Incredible.
The spread was 18.5.
Wow.
That's right.
Because they're looking at his team saying, you shouldn't be able to do this.
Which is why I was saying,
watch me,
That's why I led off by saying that I'm just not sure about Texas right now. They're just not playing very well. That's what it looks like to me.
I think they've got the players to turn this around, but they're going to have to play better if they're going to go down the stretch.
Mm-hmm. Indiana remains undefeated. Any thoughts there as they go to 8-0? I mean, this team just keeps chugging. It's really amazing to watch.
Yeah, I don't have much on Indiana. I mean,
I'm a huge fan of their coach. Signetti's built incredible programs everywhere he's gone. I heard some statistics about him, about how He's the only coach ever to go 8-0 with two different teams within 1 year of each other.
Mm-hmm.
He got JMU to 10-0.
I mean, think about this,
And
Brad.
now he's 8-0 with a team that nobody thinks of Indiana as a football team.
Think about this, Brad. Everywhere he goes, high school, college, early college, JMU, everywhere he goes, he wins. And not only wins, but like dominates his division.
Yeah.
And he goes to Indiana this year, and he takes like 20 JMU players with him. And they're sitting at 8-0 in one of the top 2 conferences in football, the Big Ten.
They have 14 starters that they got in the transfer portal.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen very much.
Yeah, so they took
my problem with them is they haven't really beaten anybody. They haven't played too many really good teams. So
their most impressive win was 56-7 against Nebraska. I mean, that was impressive.
Yeah,
Nebraska's good.
Yeah,
Nebraska, Ohio State. So
Nebraska said that they just got steamrolled, and they did.
I don't know. Nobody wants to play Indiana. I'm telling you.
No, I know, especially since they have this backup quarterback.
That's right.
He's outstanding, and he had a nice game. So while their quarterback's healing up, they're not missing a beat.
Right.
Tavon Jackson, he had a nice game, and their defense came up huge against Washington. So, but I mean, this is their best win they've had. Really, they don't really play anybody until they start to get it towards the end of the season. They've got at Michigan State versus Michigan, and then at Ohio State. Mm-hmm. So the next 3 weeks are going to tell you a lot about this team.
So next one's number 12, Notre Dame routes number 24, Navy. Navy was in the top 25 for the first time in a long time, but just was no match for Notre Dame.
No. Riley Leonard is one of the top quarterbacks in the NCAA right now.
Yeah.
And so I think Notre Dame is on a move.
So not a surprise that they won, Brad, but a surprise what the spread was.
I was very surprised at that spread. Yeah. I thought Navy would have kept it a little closer, but Notre Dame just kind of steamrolled on them. Mm-hmm. I was surprised at that spread, though.
Yeah, agreed.
I'm not surprised at all. I feel like Navy's ceiling is playing teams one level below Notre Dame. They're going to beat a lot of those like ACC teams.
Probably even like a Maryland. They can
JMU, maybe a Maryland. But when you start to run into the big boys, I think Navy gets run out of the gym. And it's not their fault. They just don't have the size, speed, and depth.
Notre Dame leaned on them on both sides of the ball. They leaned on them.
And I called that last week. I said there's no chance that Notre Dame loses. None.
You did.
And I didn't know if it would be a blowout or not, but I just don't think it's fair to even line them up against a Notre Dame. The size difference, speed, power, everything. Just it's not a match. And I'm happy for Navy having a really special season. I'm so happy that they're, in the top 25. I actually don't know if they are anymore. I didn't check that, but
no, they dropped out.
They're having an incredible season. It's so easy to root for them, but I just don't think Notre Dame is a realistic measuring stick.
Agreed. And I love that.
Up against Notre Dame.
What's that?
What's going to happen when Florida State plays Notre Dame?
Oh my God.
That's going to be
brutal.
That's going to be brutal.
It is. So next one, Brad, you talked about some of the upsets that didn't happen that almost happened. And this was one of them. I really felt all day long watching this score and watching the highlights. Nebraska was going to pull this off. It really looked like it. And they were coming back off a 56-7 drubbing by Indiana and almost pulled this thing off. But Ohio State was able to escape. Yeah. Any thoughts about this game? Was this kind of Nebraska trying to save face? Was this Ohio State not playing well? A little bit of both.
I don't think Ohio State had a terrible game. but I don't think they played their best either.
Mhm.
I think Nebraska was on there. Nebraska was in there, and they wanted this game bad. I think they wanted it more than Ohio State did. I think Ohio State thought, oh yeah, we'll go in there. Nebraska won't be too terrible. They're going to give us a game, but it's not going to be, we'll be okay. But Nebraska came in there, fighting for the win, and they almost got it.
For sure.
So, yeah, I think Nebraska has a good program, and I think they have a good team, but I just think they just came up a little short.
Completely agree. Robbie?
I think this game told you a lot about Ohio State and where they are right now. Losing their left tackle is catastrophic for them. They lost their left tackle for the season, and the backup that they had actually went off on crutches too. So they had to move their left guard to left tackle and then bring in a backup at left guard. And then they had another offensive line position go down. They're very banged up on the offensive line. And what happened was they're very nervous because they weren't able to run the ball. They were averaging 2.1 yards per carry. And Chip Kelly's the offensive coordinator there. And he was even heard talking about they're going to need to run the ball later this season. And he's really nervous with this backup string of linemen being able to run the ball. Also, they were not sure that they were going to be able to hold up for throwing protection. Mm-hmm. So they decided to try and run the ball, and they were not effective. So I think what saved Ohio State was its defense. They had quite a defensive effort, 2 fumble recoveries, 3 sacks, 1 INT, and 13 tackles for loss. Mm-hmm. So if it weren't for Ohio State's defense, I don't think this would have happened. And they were able to come back in the fourth quarter, but it wasn't a beautiful performance. And I think a lot of it is what you're seeing is they don't have the depth on the offensive line, mm-hmm. and they're really nervous about it. And I think they got out of character. They wanted to throw the ball more, but I think they said, we're going to have to run the ball effectively if we're going to survive some of our later tests. And let's try and run the ball on these guys right now. And it wasn't effective. So they're very nervous in Ohio State because they're playing Penn State next week.
Yep.
And Penn State's offensive line's banged up. So this is going to be a wild game.
And by the way, Penn State is their toughest game the rest of the way. I mean, Michigan, I don't think it's going to be nearly as tough as Penn State.
This is going to be the wildest games because both lines are very banged up. And so the defense are going to be teeing off. It's probably going to be turnovers all over the place, or a lot of 3 and outs.
Yep, probably. All right, next one we got number 1 Oregon rolls number 20 Illinois. Any surprise there? I thought Illinois might give Oregon a little bit better game.
I was surprised at how bad it got. I think Luke Altmaier is a very good quarterback.
He is.
And they've looked good this year. Not great. Like at no point did I think they could beat Oregon, but they got blasted.
I came out of the game thinking to myself, Oregon and Georgia are clearly the 2 best teams. That's what I came out of this game realizing. I knew Oregon was really good, but I now believe they and Georgia should be the national championship.
Yeah.
At least if it were right now.
Oregon looked really good. I think they were drilling on all cylinders, offense and defense.
Yeah, they had 27 first downs.
I think Ashton Genty was maybe leading the Heisman race until this game. I think now Dylan Gabriel's probably sitting in the driver's seat for the Heisman Trophy.
Yeah.
That's my feeling on it. Number 3, Penn State stays perfect. Anything of consequence to mention there on that game? They just keep rolling every week.
Yeah, I mean they didn't kill Wisconsin. I mean, at 28-13, it wasn't a blowout by any means, but Drew Aller is he's 14 of 18. That's pretty stellar.
You never felt like Wisconsin was going to win this game, though.
They ran the ball effectively, and they played good defense. So Penn State's got a good formula for keeping games close, pounding the ball. Unfortunately, their offensive line's banged up, so we'll see if they can play their normal style. But Aller looked great. I mean, he had no picks, 148 yards and a touchdown. And they just kind of handled Wisconsin, I guess. Just
So who do you guys like in the Penn State-Ohio State matchup? Who do you guys like?
Are they playing are they playing in Ohio or Penn? That game home or away?
I'll look that one up. Penn State. It's at Penn State.
At Penn State.
Ohio State is the most loaded roster, but their offensive line's really banged up, and their backups are not playing very well. So they're more of a question mark.
Although I like Ohio State's quarterback a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I just feel like they're not going to beat Penn State at Penn State. I just don't.
I feel like it depends on what kind of game it is. If it's a low scoring grinding game, Penn State's going to find a way to win that. If it's a high flying game, Ohio State's going to win that.
I agree because they have better athletes. They have more track stars.
The wide receiver for Ohio State, I can't remember his name right now.
Astounding player. Yeah.
Yeah. Joe Klatt said he's the best receiver he's ever seen in his life.
I agree with that.
Joel Klatt, who was a scout.
Rob, he's 19. The guy is 19.
No, that's the guy for Alabama.
No, that
No,
kid's
he's
17.
That's right.
This kid's 19 and he's ready for
right.
NFL.
Yeah. Klatt said he's the best player, wide receiver he's ever seen in his life.
Yeah.
Jeremiah Smith?
Yeah, that's him.
Yep.
He's 18.
Oh, is he 18?
That's
18.
It.
18 years old. He'll be 19 in November.
He's much older than the Alabama receiver.
I wish I was his agent, Brad.
Yeah, that'd be nice. The Alabama receiver, I believe, 17, right?
He's 17.
17, yeah. Yep.
Crazy.
So next one, Miami moves to 8-0 with a win over Florida State. You mentioned this, Brad, how bad Florida State is this year. And, Miami finally won a comfortable game and didn't give up 45 points to the other team. But I don't know what to make of that. I don't think that's much, to write home about when it's Florida State.
It doesn't tell you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They won in every statistical category.
It just, I don't know. You can't really read anything from this. I really want to see Miami play a real team and see how they do, where they're not giving up 45 points to Louisville. So we'll see.
I think Duke's going to give them a run.
I'm really excited to see that game. I really am. They're pretty good.
I think that's going to be a good game for them.
So Colorado makes its first appearance in the college football power rankings. Any thoughts about Colorado just continuing to win and kind of creeping up the poll, and nobody's making any headway over them? And I don't know. They're kind of sneaky this year, Colorado.
Yeah, it's interesting when things are a little, the media's down a little bit, and Dion's kind of, settled a little bit. They're winning games, but when everything's all the hoopla around everything, it tends to not go that way. But I think Sanders has stepped up as a quarterback and is doing better than he has in the past.
Completely agree.
They've got some NFL talent on a team that's not the best roster, but I think Shedeur Sanders is probably the best quarterback in football. I think if you put him on Oregon, you'd have every bit as much sizzle.
Right.
Shedeur can make all the throws. He's well
Travis
coached.
Travis Hunter could start.
And he has a generational talent that he's throwing to, Travis Hunter, who is fourth in his league in receiving while he's a lockdown corner. So I think Dion's done a really nice job with Colorado this year, keeping it quiet and focused and on point. This
That's
is
right.
his last chance with his sons, so he really wants to do as much as possible.
Mhm.
And I think they are a very good team. I don't know about playoff, but I wouldn't want to play them. They should be in the top 25.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
100%.
They're
Uh-huh.
definitely coming on. They're coming.
Their
Alabama
defense is
shuts
playing
out.
better, and so is their offensive line.
So Alabama had a couple bad weeks in a row, and they finally shut somebody out, and it was a really good team, Missouri, which was I was kind of surprised by this score line. I thought this would be a really competitive kind of 31-27 type game. And Missouri, I don't know if they didn't come to play, or I don't know. Alabama's defense finally showed up, but any thoughts on why this was such a blowout?
They shut down Drew Pine.
Yeah.
I mean, 42 yards
Yeah.
of passing, and 3 interceptions. You're not going to get past Alabama with that.
No
Man,
chance.
No chance at all.
In Alabama, throwing 3 picks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I was very surprised Missouri played like this because they're a good team. They're solid. And
I just think it was just a bad day for them overall. I mean, there was a lot of mistakes in that game. I don't think there's any one person you can throw the axe at, because they didn't have much rushing, they didn't have much receiving, and
I think expectations
I think he ran over their defense pretty well.
Yeah. I think expectations from Missouri has been too high this year, and it's really hurting them in these kind of games where it's surprising when they get blown out, because they don't deserve how high they've been regarded the whole season. There's been sort of a Missouri bias of some kind that
they're like penciling them in for the playoff and all this kind of stuff.
like, whoa. It's not, they're in the conference that is like murderer's row. It's not that easy.
Brutal. Yeah, it's brutal. SEC. It really
You have to
is.
have a special season, and it's really hard to project that.
So with 2 losses, is Alabama back after this game? Are they back on track?
I don't think they were ever, I shouldn't say gone. They probably had some tweaking to do in some spots, but I think it's just Alabama, and
and now nobody wants to play them.
Exactly. So are they back? They've always been there. They just had a few things they needed to figure out, but
had a couple bad weeks, right?
Yeah,
that's very possible.
It happens.
I
But
think they're figuring.
I think Rob is right in the fact that, or whoever, Rob or Tom, I think Missouri has been touted too high, and I don't think. I mean, their record is the same as Alabama, and one's 14 and one's 25. So
no doubt.
Yeah.
So this next one, Rob already mentioned. BYU continues to get no respect. Vegas picked UCF in this game, even though BYU is the one who's ranked, largely because UCF almost knocked off Iowa State the week before. Any thought about why BYU doesn't get any respect? Why nobody talks about them as a playoff contender?
I mean, after seeing that game, even though they did win, I don't think that game should have been, and I don't know why Vegas chose UCF, but they should have beaten UCF by way more than 13 points.
Yeah.
And so, and maybe that's why. I mean, even though they're undefeated, does that really put them up there? It's no different than Alabama and Missouri having the same records, and one's 15, one's 21.
And that's always the question, right? Like, if Miami were in the SEC, what would their record be? Would they really be 8? No, probably not. If BYU was in the SEC, what would their record be?
Well, they haven't played anybody, so that's why the Vegas is nervous about them. I mean, they still have Utah, Kansas, Arizona State, and Houston, but that's not still going to tell us very much about a team who's going to go into the playoffs. So their wins are barely beating SMU.
They moved up to number 9 this week.
9.
Well, let's talk about the winners of the week. You tell me if you guys say yes or no if you agree with these. Okay, first one's Indiana. You guys good with that one?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
8-0. BYU we just talked about, still undefeated. Alabama Seem like they're kind of back on track.
Yeah.
The Crimson
Yep.
Tide. Pitt continues
Oh,
to
yeah.
just beat the brains out of people. Nobody's talking about them.
Yeah.
Texas A&M wins the big game of the week in the SEC with LSU. Proves that they're definitely, they kind of belong in the mix. And then Oregon, of course, with their big blowout and clearly cementing themselves as the number one team. Any problems with any of these six?
No.
No. I think those are all good things. So.
Anybody you'd add to that? Notre Dame, maybe?
I was going to say maybe Notre Dame, but.
How about the App State Mountaineers?
You need to put them up there.
Put them up there. Heck yeah. All right, let's go to losers. We got LSU. That was a pretty bad loss for them. They really were kind of, after that big loss at the beginning of the year, they really kind of needed to keep winning. Now they've dropped to 2 losses and kind of not in as good shape as they were. You got UNLV, which really had to win out to try to get that number 12 seed and played Boise. Of course, Boise took care of them. So UNLV is kind of out of the picture now. Missouri, with that really pathetic showing, everyone thought that they were a playoff contender, and they just looked terrible. Didn't look like they should be on the same field. Illinois, with a surprising kind of lackluster effort in their game in the Big Ten. Not sure what happened there. And then OU with another loss, 3 losses on the season now, and just literally can't score. I don't know what it is with this team, but they're scoring 9 points a week. Any thoughts about these, and would you add any other ones?
I think I would add Syracuse.
Okay. Why is that?
They got blasted by Pitt and 3 pick sixes.
Weren't they on back-to-back plays?
They were in the first half, I think.
The first half, yeah. I mean, they were literally like back-to-back-to-back.
I can't remember exactly the timing of them, but
what was surprising is that's Kyle McCord, and he's a really good quarterback. And so I don't know what happened.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They were having a nice season, and then they have a complete meltdown against Pitt that is a team that everyone's looking past. But Pitt's beating everyone that they're facing, and they're mauling them. Like
that's
3 pick sixes, 4 sacks, a fumble recovery.
Right. That's right.
You know what's crazy about that game? Syracuse had the time of possession 41 minutes versus Pitt 18.
Wow.
Pitt was just scoring at will from their defensive side.
Right.
That's crazy. And they
I
won.
think you got the loser of the week. You got to stick Kentucky in there.
Kentucky? Okay.
I mean, Auburn comes into Lexington and just, I don't know.
We were talking about Auburn as one of those disappointing teams, and Hugh Freeze coming over from Liberty and how he's been at Auburn a couple of years now, and he's really been subpar compared to what Auburn's used to. And so a lot of people think Hugh Freeze is on the hot seat. So I wonder if they're starting to play for their coach,
Hey, they could be. There's a lot of teams out there that are doing it right now.
Isn't there a way we could just have a permanent slide in there for Florida State?
I took them off the list. I had them 3 weeks in a row. And I was
changing them out, but leave Florida State up there.
Permanent. So the top 25, here's the scramble. You talked about, Brad. You got Oregon, Georgia, Penn State, Ohio State. Miami moves up to 5. Texas drops from 5 to 6. Tennessee, and now you have a couple new ones in the top 10. Notre Dame's new, BYU's new, and Texas A&M is new. And then you have Clemson and Ohio State both drop down out of the top 10, even though they both won, which is kind of interesting. You have Indiana continuing their rise up the charts. Alabama from 15 to 14. Boise rising. LSU falling. Pittsburgh also rising. Any of these surprising to you guys?
Army had a bye week. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Colorado also in the top 25 now.
Yeah, they belong there, I think.
I think the Miami concerns me up there.
Yeah, it's too high. Miami's too high.
I think when you look at Tennessee, I mean Tennessee is a much take away the record. They're 6-1 versus Miami's 8-0. Tennessee is a much better team.
Tennessee would beat Miami. I absolutely agree.
Tennessee would beat Miami.
Absolutely agree. Yeah. By the way, Tennessee's defense is really good.
Texas A&M may, BYU may beat Miami.
I think Clemson's gonna beat Miami. So
right. So
I think Clemson and Miami might switch. Although I'd put Texas higher than Clemson. I'm also one of the few that is holding the line on what I said a long time ago, which is the 4 top teams are Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, and Alabama. And that's kind of unpopular right now, and I get it, but
you don't have
I
Oregon
still think they're the 4 most talented teams.
You don't have Oregon in there, huh?
I think Oregon's probably 5, Tennessee 6, and then it gets a little muddled. There's a lot of good teams after that.
I think Oregon and Georgia are the 2 best teams right now. I think Ohio State has some flaws they've been showing.
I agree. Without that offensive line.
Miami's very flawed. I think Texas has been showing some flaws. I think their quarterback play hasn't been quite as good, and their line hasn't been holding up. So I like Oregon, Georgia, top 2, and then probably Penn State at 3. I guess we'll see this week, Penn State, Ohio State, who's going to take that one. But
I heard a really interesting comparison for Ohio State. This guy said that Ohio State is like owning a bunch of Ferraris, but the offensive line's hurt, and it's sort of like a dirt road. And how a Ferrari doesn't perform well on a dirt road. If you could somehow pave the road, get that offensive line back in place or get your backups situated, Ohio State could go back to making a run. But if they don't get that situated, you'll never have your Ferraris run like they're designed to.
Right.
I think that's kind of a good analogy.
That's a good point. Yeah. Well, we'll see. This will be scrambled again next week. Let's move to the World Series. First 2 games. You got Dodgers got a 2-0 lead. Both really solid games, I thought. I think the Dodgers' clutch hitting and their pitching at the end of the game were just a little bit better. Of course, Game 3's tonight. We'll see if the Yankees can make this a series. Any thoughts about the game so far?
So, interesting. You know, I thought the Yankees would be playing better, but the Dodgers obviously are. I mean, they're leading right now.
Clutch hitting.
Clutch hitting. It really is clutch hitting. That's what it looks like to me. When they need it, they get it.
So far.
And then when they get the lead, when the Dodgers get the lead, they don't give it up. They give it over to a really good bullpen and they close it out.
Bottom of the 5th right now, and the Dodgers are up 3-0.
There you go. So
this is the must-win for the Yankees. If they drop this one, I think it's over.
I agree.
But if they win their first one at home, they make it a series again. So
yep.
They have to get this win.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see if they can pull it out. Otherwise, it might be a very quick series, and that's not what Major League Baseball wants at all. They want a Game 7 between these 2.
Yeah, they'll somehow figure out a way to get it to 7.
Shohei Ohtani is playing tonight, so his separated shoulder is in a condition where he can play still.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Did you see that play, Tom?
I did.
He slid into second, popped it out of.
Crazy.
Pretty rough.
So I guess he can still hit with it, right?
I guess so.
Okay. We'll see what happens.
If nothing tears, it's just kind of pops out of socket. There's, reduce it, put it back in, and so if any soft tissue tears or anything, obviously that's a problem. But if it just dislocates and they put it back in, it's
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm hoping this series becomes an exciting series. The first 2 games were very good, but I really would like to see this go a little bit further.
I wonder if was that his shoulder that he pitches with?
I don't know.
I don't know the answer to that.
I'm not sure. Yeah, he's a righty. Let's talk about Major League Soccer playoffs round 1. There's 4 games in the book so far. We got Inter Miami and Messi took game 1 of their series. They're up 1-0. You got the Galaxy won 5-0 against one of my dark horse teams. Clearly not. LA leads 1-0 there. You got Orlando City, unfortunately, beat my Charlotte FC team. So Charlotte FC now needs to win the next 2 to survive. We'll see what they can do Friday night. And then LAFC, the other LA team, also won last night, 2-1. So essentially, all of the favorites won so far in these series. So there's been no surprises so far. So any thoughts on this? We were talking about this, Brad. We really like this new soccer format with the best of 3 series in round 1. I think that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, I agree. Growing up a soccer player and Jackson actually played soccer until he was in 7th grade before he started kicking a football. But
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, some of the talent that's out there, it's in some of these teams. Obviously 2-1, 2-1, 2-0. LA beating Colorado 5-0 is a little bit of a concern there. But the other games were, I would have liked to have seen the FC, put something in the net, but it's not a done deal at 2-0.
It's not, and it's coming back to Charlotte this Friday. They're pretty good at home. Kalina's been playing really well in goal.
Mm-hmm.
Rob called Galaxy versus Miami in the final, so we'll see. He's looking pretty good right now. It's been fun. I've been watching these games this week, and they've been really fun to watch. Been some really great games.
I think Messi wants in, so
he does.
He wants that cup. So
yeah, he wants every kind of cup you can win.
He's got about 20 of them already, so this will be another one.
And Suarez wants one. He needs a cup.
That's right. That's right.
Well, I'm going to hand it over to Robbie for the mailbag segment.
That was a pretty funny picture.
You like that?
Yeah, it's all right.
I always try to find one of you being funny and doing something.
An embarrassing picture or something. Cool. Well, let's see. Okay. First one is super helpful breakdown of the transfer portal at Kawasi. This was from Jackson's episode when he was on with us. I looked for one, Brad, with yours, but we didn't have any comments in that one. So that was funny. But super helpful breakdown of the transfer portal. I actually learned a lot in both of your episodes, so I appreciate that. Tom, what are your thoughts on that?
That's great. I mean, we were trying our best to have Jackson and Brad's episodes both to really cover the transfer portal, NIL, the whole new changing landscape in college football. And so if we really helped you understand it better, that's great. I know it helped Rob and me understand it better. We definitely were not briefed as to how it works, and now we are. So that's great that you guys found that helpful, and drop us another comment on something else you'd like us to cover around the transfer portal.
Brad, did you get to watch that episode, I imagine, with Jackson?
Oh yeah. I didn't watch it with him, but I watched the episode. Yeah.
What were your thoughts on that? Did anything come out of that you weren't aware of, or did it drive home what you already thought?
Yeah, but when it comes from the athlete, they are so engaged in that, and even the parent of an athlete, we are engaged somewhat, but they are the front line. They're the ones talking to the coaches. They're the ones that know everything that's going on, and so I think my perspective has always been it's the more that we know and the more that we can educate just the general public. If you got an athlete and you don't know what the NIL means or what it's about, what the portal's about, it's nice to be able to come on the Sports Guyz podcast and talk about these things and help educate some of these parents that are out there that have these athletes that may be looking at entering the portal or just want to learn a little bit more about NIL stuff. So
one of our theories, Brad, about why college football is so amazing this year, this is the greatest season I've ever seen, is because of the portal, because of the ability to spread the talent around. Guys don't want to sit second, third in the rotation on their teams anymore. They want to go somewhere and play. And so what it's done is it's spread college football talent around to many, many more teams. Everybody has a chance now, right?
That's right.
So that's my theory, is that the
And
portal
people are
has-
maximizing their years of eligibility.
Yeah.
So they're redshirting so that they don't sit on the bench all year and transferring and doing, there's a lot of creativity going on that helps people get some money and also more playing time. And it's improving college football, instead of a tiny number of teams that are loaded with 4 layers of NFL talent. It spreads it out and keeps kids in school longer, which is really good for football and for the student.
So I was
So
talking to a buddy of mine, and he's big ECU football fan, and it was just, he said, how is somebody like an ECU going to be able to compete with not having the big NIL funds? And I said it's not simple, but my solution is there's going to be some 2s and 3s at some of these Power 4 schools that aren't going to get big NIL monies if they move within those Power 4 schools. But if they go like a group of 5, they're starting because they want to play. They don't demand all this high NIL price tag, and they can go play. And they're good players. They're 2s and 3s on the depth charts in a Power 4, but man, they're killing it in that group of 5. So
that's right.
Yeah.
That's how they're going to survive. And you've got the Alabamas and the Clemsons of the world that don't believe in going to the portal. They want to develop players, which is a great thing because high school athletes are going to need a place to go.
Yeah.
Because right now, a lot of these specialty positions, especially kickers, teams are going and they're not wanting to pull somebody out of high school. They're wanting to go look at them from the portal.
That's right. I mean, if I'm the 3rd running back on Texas A&M and I'm on the depth chart 3rd for a couple of years in a row, I'm going to transfer to Indiana where I can play, right?
100%.
And so what that does is then Indiana all of a sudden gets better because they pick up a great talent who Texas A&M was already loaded anyway, right? So that's the positive side of the transfer portal and NIL.
Yeah.
I think the negative side is what happened to us this past week as UVA Cavalier fans when we lost Tony Bennett.
Yeah.
And he made it pretty clear that he's leaving basketball for the same reason that Kay and Roy Williams and Jay Wright and all these other guys are leaving, even Nick Saban. And that is that they don't like the current state of college athletics. They don't like that there's so much greed. They have these recruits that they get to commit to the school, and they walk into their office and say they want $1 million NIL deal to stay. And so that's the kind of dirty, maybe negative side of this new system, is that you're going to see a lot of really great coaches who just don't want to put up with it. And I don't know what your thoughts are there, Brad.
I think some of that's gonna slow down a little bit because as we move into 25 and they're getting rid of PWOs and there's going to be, it's going to be a collective bargaining thing. I mean, every player is going to end up getting paid.
Brad, what's PWOs?
Preferred walk-ons. So those are going away. So everybody's going to have, everybody's going to be at some point, at some level, is going to be paid. They're going to get a percentage of this clump of money that the athletic department is getting in their specific program from all the TV money.
So do you think that's going to spread the talent out even more, and we'll have even more parity potentially?
I do. 100%.
So I think it'll be good.
I think it's going to be good. It's just those first few years, you saw some of these people jumping just for money.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think it muddied the waters a little bit, but now they're kind of figuring things out, and
you'll get a salary cap, and there'll be some controls, right?
I think there should be some kind of restriction after your first transfer.
Agree.
I think it needs to be, that coach was the problem and that coach was the problem. Wait a second. Let's take a deep breath.
Unrestricted free agency where you can, transfer 3-4 times in a college career. That's not going to work. There's got to be something.
I think you should get one transfer free to better your situation, whether it's for money, for playing time, hopefully playing time, be near your family, whatever. And then after that, maybe you have to sit a year.
That's what I was getting ready to say, Rob. You start throwing those into the equation, you're going to see much less movement because some of these guys are exercising that 5th year and just going somewhere and getting paid big bucks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not panning out for the program, but they've gotten all their money, a couple $1 million, and they move on after that year. So
yeah,
so maybe it's one, and then there's you sit a year. I mean, if it's already the SEC has that rule going SEC to SEC after if you late portal in the spring. So I think we'll see a lot more of these things working themselves out, and they're going to put a lot more rules in place, and it's going to kind of settle things down.
All right. Absolutely crazy. Can't wait for part 2 at David Scott. This was about our crazy sports.
Oh, that's great. Yep. We had a lot of fun with that episode.
Hopefully everyone out there can go check out not only our crazy sports, but also our segments on NIL.
Absolutely. So, I'll highlight those in the comments down below for sure.
Brad, did you get to watch our crazy sport one?
I did not see that one.
Okay.
We did 20 crazy sports from all around the world, Brad, and it was probably the most fun episode we've ever done. We looked at sports that you wouldn't even believe they're real sports, and they really are, from all different countries and continents. And, things like wife carrying and slap wrestling and just some crazy stuff. You wouldn't even believe that they're real.
Chess boxing.
So Rob, what was your top craziest sport that you came across that you had no idea was a sport?
I can't remember what it's called, but the Japanese 75 people on each side attacking. One is on offense, one's on defense, where you have to knock their pole over.
Yeah, I love that. It was 75 against 75.
It was so crazy.
That was a great sport. we had so much fun doing it. We had so much fun doing it. We had so much great feedback, Brad, that we're going to end up doing a part 2 with a bunch of new crazy sports we found.
We had some really crazy ones again.
Yeah.
But chess boxing was wild, where you play a round of chess and then you box.
Oh,
and then you play a round of chess and then you box. And it's over if somebody wins the chess match or knocks the person out.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know that I can see very many chess players boxing, but hey.
Yeah. And then we had
playing chess.
There was underwater hockey and underwater rugby, and we just had a lot of great ones. It was a lot of fun.
I want to give a shout out to Kate and Dave, was it, Tom?
Yeah.
That found my phone.
Yeah, Kate and Dave, this past weekend, Rob lost his phone at the pickleball court. We were playing pickleball, and they accidentally put his phone into their pickleball bag. And we did want to thank them so much for being so gracious, meeting us and giving Rob his phone back, because he was a little desperate there for about 2 hours. So,
yeah.
I want to do quickly, just from Sports Guyz, encourage everybody who's watching tonight to go vote. We're not telling you who to vote for, but we want you to go vote. It's about a week left in the election. Do your civic duty. It doesn't take that long. Go down to your local voting place and put in your name, and then you can bitch and complain all you want to once you've done your civic duty. So make sure you do that. You got 8 days left.
Let your voice be heard.
No doubt about it. And like this video, subscribe to the channel. Brad, man, it's been so great having you. Such an honor every time you come on the program. We love it, and we hope you come back and grace us with your presence again.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys, and it's always a fun time. So, another big week, and hope to be back on soon.
So how did Jackson for us? And we're watching that field goal tally. I want to see that increase.
There you go. Got Old Dominion this weekend, so it'll be good.
Love it.
We'll be pulling for him.
All right,
Brad,
Rob,
thanks a lot for joining us.
We got the Wolfpack this weekend. Who's the pack player? I can tell you, Stanford. That's so weird to talk about these West Coast teams playing.
Are you used to that? Like, like you got Pittsburgh playing, Cal. It's strange.
So yeah, Stanford at NC State, and then Duke comes over. So
it's great.
Interesting.
All right, you guys have a great night. We'll see you next time on the Sports Guyz. Have a good one.
Same here. Thanks, everybody.